And she needs somebody to let that out, and please just let that happen. And from there on, it was like it didn't hurt quite as bad anymore.
All right, well, Ms. Dawn, thank you for joining us today for our 7 questions with Summit Quest. You have been on the board at Summit Quest now for around 6 years. You have been a blessing in so many ways. I consider you a great friend of mine, and I thank you for taking time to share your story today and share the story of Erin.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So we will jump in with our very first question, and that would be, can you describe Erin to us? Can you maybe describe her energy, her hobbies as a young child, as I guess growing up into being a young adult? Just kind of describe what she was like.
So Erin, I've said this a million times in my life, or I guess since in her life, was from the minute she popped out, it was going to be her way or the highway. She was very strong-willed. She was always full of energy, learned to do everything quickly. She was talking, walking early, and sassy with all of that as well. Had a potty mouth, unfortunately, early on, and so she just had energy like crazy. And she, from early, she loved animals, from anything that was crawling, creeping, slithering.
So way beyond like typical dogs and cats.
Oh yeah, anything. She was. That was kind of the mainstay throughout her whole life, and it was hard too to keep from, especially once for a period of her life, we lived in the country, but she was only 7 years old when we moved into the city, and it became difficult she was always bringing something home. It didn't take much, though, for her to convince her daddy to keep most of them, but for short periods of time usually. But anyway, and the other thing about Erin that was just so prevalent from a little girl to the last days of her life was there was nothing she wouldn't. If she had it in her mind to do it, it was going to happen. There were no rules. The rules were her rules. She decided how it was going to be. And, it was that was great, and that was very hard sometimes. Very, very hard. So just a ball of energy and a lot of love and you didn't have to guess where she was on anything. It was good, bad, or ugly. You knew it.
She let you know.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, she played sports?
She was just gifted from early. Played t-ball. Started at 4 years old. Played t-ball. Didn't officially. I think you couldn't be on the team till you were like 7. But started playing immediately. Her grandmother was a big softball player, so that got. They had her out in the yard throwing softballs and hitting balls early on, and she played softball from the time she was on a team at 7 until she graduated high school. And so I thought that was going to be her primary sport. She was always on travel teams and this and that. She was always the catcher. And she had a couple of girls along the way that were her primary pitcher, and it was just always, it's just me and you. It's just you and me. And but so I kind of thought that was going to be it. But then she did play soccer one year, and what's funny about that is she was really good. As early on the season, they said, we want her on the Arsenal team, we want her to travel, and she just said, nope, not doing it. There is too much running in that sport. I'm not doing it. But what's funny about that is she ended up being a great lacrosse player, which is a ton of running, and she loved it and actually went to college on a lacrosse scholarship.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Now, where did she play lacrosse?
At Tennessee Wesleyan, and unfortunately, we'll get to that in a few minutes. But she didn't get to do that very long. Yeah.
Can you describe a little bit about the discovery of Erin's cancer and then the treatment journey that you guys had to take after that?
Yeah. So we've had a long journey, but initially it kind of started before the actual diagnosis. I mentioned that she played lacrosse and that she went to Tennessee Wesleyan. Between her junior and senior year in high school, she went to a camp at Tennessee Wesleyan. Loved the coach. That's actually why she chose that college, because she was just so drawn to that coach. She had been invited to go to other schools, and those were fun trips to go check them out. But she started having staph infections, and she got a staph infection early on, just back from the camp. Within a couple of weeks, she had a staph infection, so we got treated for that. A couple months later, another staph infection, and then a couple months later, she got the flu, and a couple months later, she had mono, and then she had, all of these sort of immunity deficiency things were happening, but staph especially, she just kept having staph. So she, like I said, she was a wild and crazy girl. When she was backing up a little bit, when she was sophomore in high school, she had gone away with some friends on doing something she wasn't supposed to do, four-wheeling, and had a wreck and knocked out her teeth. She had, when by the time I got there, it looked like the girl had no teeth left in her head, but they were all there. Just one was missing. They were all kind of pushed back. So several surgeries and back into braces after she had just had braces off. Her teeth were so beautiful. But this one tooth in the front had to be replaced with a dental implant. And in order to do that, they had to graft some bone. And they did that a month before she went to college, off to college. She wore, they wanted to get her teeth back straightened with the braces first before. So did a bone graft to build back the bone in order to put the screw in for the dental implant. And unfortunately, that is what triggered her leukemia. We didn't know that until later, after kind of discovery and going through a lot of interviews and things with the doctors about, what led up to your illness, that kind of thing. But but that was kind of the trigger. He said she would have probably gotten leukemia sometime later in her life, but that was kind of the trigger because it disturbed the bone marrow when they did that. So what happened is all these bouts her senior year of staph. So we went to, got her in college, moved her in, started school, was loving it, and I'm sorry I never did this. So when, going for sororities, whatever you call that process. Rush. Going through all that process, just having a great time. And she called me on a Wednesday night and said, "Hey, Mom, I've got this weird rash." And she said, it doesn't itch, but she said, I've got it kind of across my shoulders and I've got it down on my legs. And she always had sensitive skin. I said, well, now that you're using a communal shower and you're using a communal washing machine and your sensitive skin, maybe it's just a rash. I said, are you running a fever? She said, no, I feel fine. She said, I'm tired, but she said, I think it's because we're working out before school, we're working out after school, and she said, so I think that's it. But I said, well, I'll tell you what, just keep an eye on it. If you still got it by this weekend or later this week, then we'll call Dr. Davis, was her pediatrician. I said, we'll call Dr. Davis to see what's going on. So then Friday morning, she called me and she said, hey, Mom, I think my staph is back. She said, I've got a knot on the side of my leg. And she said, it sort of looks like staph, but she said, it's really big. And she said, it looks a little different. And so I said, well, I'll tell you what. She had a 8 o'clock class. I said, just go to class and then go see the team doctor and let him look at it and then call me back. And so he sent her immediately to the, Athens, Tennessee is it's about as big as this office. Right. The town is very small. He sent her to the clinic, and immediately between the rash, which was Tepekii, and the lesion on her leg, he knew immediately what was going on. He said, let me run a little blood test, and he said, you go on back to the dorm, and I'll call you on Monday.
And this was Friday?
This was on Friday morning.
And you guys are in Rome.
And we live in Rome. She's in Athens, Tennessee. And he said, you just go back and, enjoy your weekend. It was some kind of freshman weekend, so they were having a lot of events for the freshmen. So she was really looking forward to that. Well, he called in less than 30 minutes, and he said, hey, Erin, I need you to come back. And so she came back, and he told her. He said, honey, you have blood cancer. And he said, I need you to go get home and get to your doctor immediately. He said, you're going to need to be checked in the hospital as soon as possible. Well, she called me from the doctor's office crying. Well, okay, so I'm the mama. I'm Mama Bear. And she said, Mama, the doctor needs to talk to you. And so he said, Miss Abels, I'm sorry, but he said, you're either going to need to come pick Erin up, or we're going to need to come. She's going to need to get home, but she's going to need to see a doctor. She has blood cancer. And I said, did you tell her that? And he said, yes, ma'am, she's 18. She's an adult. I had to tell her that. And I said, you put her back on the phone right this minute. And I said, look, you're in this little podunk town, sorry. But you're in a clinic. I don't know who he is or what he thinks he is, but we're going to go see a real doctor. I said, we'll be up there. It's about a 2-hour drive. I said, I'll be there in 2 hours to pick you up. I said, you just go pack and be ready to come home. So that's what we did, and took off, like crazy. Picked my husband up. He worked in Calhoun. Picked him up on the way. In the meantime, he had already done a little bit of research, and he kind of knew this sounds legit. So we got up there. Funny about that podunk town and country something doctor. I had to eat those words later, but anyway, that's what a mama does. She gets mad first, and absolutely. So anyway, we got up there, picked her up, came right back, saw Dr. Davis, a local pediatrician who we adore, saw her the next day, and she said, actually, we didn't see her the next day. We didn't get home till late. We went in on Monday. Still in my mind, I'm thinking this is not real. Which was luckily fine. It could have, we shouldn't have waited that long. But Monday we went, and she packed us a bag and got us on our way. Met with there's a cancer coalition of doctors, met with them. They discussed it. She was 18, so she was an adult, but they thought she had childhood cancer. So they sent us to Eggleston, or we chose Eggleston of the choices that we had. And we were packed up, and by Monday night we were down there in the emergency room, met Dr. Sabness and Dr. Cooper, who we also adore. Sabness is still with Eggleston. Dr. Cooper is now in Seattle, but these are excellent, wonderful doctors. But anyway, so that's kind of how I got started.
So from Friday afternoon to Monday afternoon,
Monday,
yes,
it was.
World has now changed.
Yes, everything has changed, and we tried to keep things as normal and upbeat as we could until Monday, and then that's when obviously there were tears. There were my husband has an knack for trying to make everything funny and try to keep things light, so there were a lot of jokes and that kind of thing. But we were terrorized, honestly.
And the ages of your other children?
At the time, so Eli would have been 15 and Alex was 8.
So much going on.
Yeah.
So much going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So then the following week she was diagnosed actually with acute myeloid leukemia, but after additional tests later in the week it came back to Philadelphia positive ALL. Oh goodness, I can't even remember. It was a diagnosis about this long, and it was a rare form because it was there was a chromosomal disorder that's what the Philadelphia positive is, that made it a little more rare and not quite as treatable. And unfortunately, there at that time, I think there's probably more now, but at that time, there was a lot of research on children 10 years or younger, and there was a lot of research on adults with Philadelphia positive, but her age group,
Middle ground.
nothing. I mean, very little. And so she was kind of there. They learned a lot from her case. Dr. Cooper was he was there to train other doctors, and he also was on a coalition across the United States of pediatric cancer doctors who they did research, and they brought cases together, and he would come to the room and have a notebook about the sick, and he said, guess what, we're going to go talk about Erin Abels today. So she had so I think of that as a gift to children now, that while it was hard on us, excuse me, it gave a lot of information so that other children that are in that age group now, there's a lot more information now.
Now, was she able to go back to school after that point?
She tried every fall. She tried to go back, and then she would, for some reason, every year the fall, she would have a long hospital stay or some incident that would happen that would put her in the hospital for a while. And so she would go back every fall and probably within a month have to withdraw. She finally did get to go back. It gave her a lot of time, though, to think about, is this what I thought I wanted to be? Is that really what I want to be when I grow up? And so she finally went back, and I will have to say, I think it was 2015 when she got to go back and kind of stay in. Now, in 2018, she relapsed, and so she had to come back out. But by that time, she was in her senior year, so she, I will have to say, Shorter University worked with her to allow her to audit some classes and do some things to keep her so that she wouldn't fall behind, and she was able to graduate when she was in 2019, in May of 2019. She graduated she got a nursing degree. Immediately took her boards the following week and started to work with Pruitt Hospice like within less than a month after she graduated.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So she was 19 when she was diagnosed?
18. Mm-hmm. The only thing I wanted to add to that is, there were 4 relapses.
Right.
There were 2 bone marrow transplants.
So all in all, how long was the entire cancer journey that you guys had to face?
So it was 10 years total. She started at 18. She was 28 when she passed away. During that time, she had about, I don't think they called one of them a relapse, but that's what I would call it, but 4 relapses. She had 2 bone marrow transplants. She had an ileostomy, temporary. Luckily, they were able to reconnect that. When she passed away, she had a lesion so big on her right leg that it was, they had one of those vacuum wound vacs on it, and she was hooked to 24/7 to chemotherapy while she was going to wait on her hospice patients. So 10 years. So she went through college, which took almost the full 10 years, and then into her job.
The role of a mother means many things throughout a mother's life. What do you see as or how can you describe a little bit the role of a mother during this cancer journey?
Well, for me, I just would have to say what my journey was. I don't want to put any predisposed,
For all the mothers,
for all the mothers of the world. But what I would have to say for me, it started off, and it was, I will have to say, there were times when it was just wonderful because I got to spend so much time with her, and then there were times when it was awful because I got to spend so much time with her that not so much from my side, but from her side, it was like I ended up being a helicopter mom, as you would imagine. But it just, for me, it was, I'd mentioned Mama Bear before, there was there were times when you felt like you had to fight for her rights, just because, just the way people with cancer are sometimes perceived as weak. She was never weak, and so if sometimes I felt like that I had to fight for that, and let her know. But the biggest thing was just so much love and being able to shower that, like I said, sometimes probably to her liking too much. The hospital beds were, that was my bed too. We slept together every night. I had my own little cot over there, but we slept together. We everywhere we went, we would laugh. And in fact, Dr. Cooper used to come in and he'd say, I could hear y'all giggling before I got to the door. So we shared a lot of fun. I remember that my feelings got hurt a lot along the way. She would. And my poor husband was in the middle of it. She would call and she'd say, "Dad, you need to make Mama leave me alone. She's just got to give me some space." And I would call and say, "She hurt my feelings," And but he gave me just the best advice one time, and I think this is what I would say was my experience as a mother, and what I would hope that other mothers going through this might kind of tuck away, is that one day was particularly hard. She was angry. She went through a really, really angry period. I mean, as you can imagine, to be healthy, athletic, and all of a sudden very, very weak and not able to do a lot for herself and having to rely on me, which was something that just drove her nuts.
And
but
at the age of
Oh,
freedom. Like
yes.
at 18, it's kind of like, hey, I'm kind of...
Absolutely.
leaving
When
the
you're
nest.
supposed to,
Right.
spread your wings, and then mom's holding on. But I called Alan one night and I said, she's just so hard on me. She hurts, and she doesn't seem to understand that all I'm trying to do is take care of her and make sure that she's safe, and that nobody's taking advantage of her, and that she has her needs met. And I said, "She's so angry. She's just so angry." And he told me, he said, "You know what?" He said, "I wish she'd get that angry with me." He said, "Because at the end of the day, she knows that she can say whatever, however, to you,
Not going anywhere.
and you're not going anywhere. You love her unconditionally, and you are going to stay there. You might be crying, but at the end, she knows that, and she needs somebody to let that out, and please just let that happen." And from there on, it was like it didn't hurt quite as bad anymore.
Such wise words in that.
Isn't that
That's-
awesome?
That is, wow.
And so that was kind of my experience all the way through, because it was hard for me not to continue to hold on, even after, she got better for a while and got married, and, but I was still that protective mom, and I had to learn to give her some space, but she knew it didn't matter what she said or did, and she did some pretty, she went through some bad things. She was angry, and she was sick, and so words and actions sometimes were not what we would have hoped for, and not things that we were proud of. But regardless,
Right.
I loved her.
Sure.
I love her.
So I understand completely that the weight of grief never goes away. But would you be able to share some ways that you were able to cope when you face days that are even more difficult than the others?
So, some would say I don't handle it very well. I'm a crier. I've always, since I was a little girl, carried my feelings on my shoulders. So, you can probably take a look at me and know whether I'm happy, mad, sad. So, we're visibly emotional, and we're verbally emotional. So usually whatever we think comes out one way or another. And but one thing at least I hope to be, is kind. I hope to, even if it's not cancer, if it's not a terminal, I realize that sometimes we don't know what other people are going through, and I just try before I, put my opinion I just try to step back and think about, okay, this person's having a bad day. Let's show a little kindness, but hopefully works. The things that I care about working in the community are things that have mattered to me, things that I think matter to others. And like I said, it's not that I'm really doing anything. I'm just there. So if somebody needs me, Lord, let me be a vessel. Whatever I can do for you, let me do. So those are some things. I do get a lot. I do get a lot of. I'm like a magnet, somewhat for mothers or people who have had cancer or some sort of illness in there. And how did you deal with this? How did you? So those kind of things. It's all sort of random. There's not really a plan, but that's sort of, I guess, how I do it. Yeah. Summit Quest has been what really has made me feel like something that, even though I don't personally do it, or maybe I participate in some of it, but just being a part of it and knowing what it's doing for the families that we serve, and through you or through the other people on our board or our volunteers, that makes me feel like at the end of the day we're doing what we need to be doing. Yeah.
So this question is based on a story that you shared with me a few months ago, and I have what I have written down for this question is messages from heaven. And can you share a little bit about the story of the dragonfly on your recent kayak trip?
So, actually, dragonflies, it's not just one kayak trip, but so you may have heard of the movie Dragonfly. I don't think it was a great movie. It was a Kevin Costner movie, and if I've got my memory correct, it was a story where Kevin Costner's wife was murdered, and she came back as a dragonfly to help him to solve her murder. So our family, Friday night, when the kids were little, Friday night was family night. So it was back when Blockbuster was open. So we would pick the kids up from school and sometimes go straight from pickup, from the line. We would order our pizza from Domino's, and then we would go over to Blockbuster, and everybody got to pick either a movie or a video game, but we got enough so that there was for the whole weekend. But Friday night in particular, we typically watched a movie together. And that particular Friday night, she was 10 years old. We got Dragonfly, and so that was the story of the movie. And when Erin realized what was going on, she said, "Pause it." And so we paused it, and she said, "That's what we're going to do, Mama. That's what we're going to do." She said, whichever one of us dies first, we're going to come back as a dragonfly, and we're going to take care of each other. And I said, "Okay, baby. Well, okay." So, you don't really think about that because you don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. And thank goodness it didn't happen anytime soon. But recently, last year in particular, I noticed more dragonflies in my life. But the kayak trip, we had gone with a big group. It was my nephew's birthday party, and so there were probably 50 of us that went kayaking over in Alabama. And one of the ladies that was there that I got to know, she was a date of someone there, so I didn't know her before the trip. And we were just kind of rowing along by each other, and I started talking. I think she thought I was talking to myself. And because when I see a dragonfly, I talk to her. I say, "Hey, baby, how are you? You having a good day today?" So I'm talking to Erin. Erin's talking to me. And so she said, Isn't Erin your daughter?" And I said, "Yeah, Erin's my daughter." And she said, "She passed away, didn't she?" I mean, she was like, "Okay, what the heck's going on here?" And I said, "Yeah, but you see that dragonfly on my foot?" I said, "Maybe, Erin, it may not," but I said, "But she told me she'd come back as a dragonfly, and here she is." Well, that dragonfly moved from my foot up to my thigh, up to my arm, and then rowing for probably 5 minutes, that dragonfly just stayed. Normally.
Well, they're super skittish.
Yeah, they won't. So it stayed with me. The other really significant dragonfly story is Father's Day. Because of the pandemic, our larger family had not gotten together much, and so my mom and dad finally decided, let's have Father's Day. Let's do it outside. So we set up picnic. They live out in the country. We set up picnic tables, and the whole family came, and we socially distanced, and but before we gotten there, while we were getting our meal together that we were taking, our dishes for the meal, I had taken them out to the car and was putting them in the back of the car. I'd raised the back, and the boys were still in the house. And all of a sudden, here comes this little, dragonfly, and it's kind of hovering over the top of the car. And I said, "Is that you, Erin?" And it kind of just hovered. And I said, "Well, come on, come to Mama," And that dragonfly came right over and landed on my finger and stayed there long enough that by the time my boys came out, which was a minute or two, came out, they got a picture of it. So I've got a picture of that dragonfly, and it's beautiful. It's blue. But so I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I look for every opportunity to talk to every single dragonfly.
And I think that's why what came to my mind was messages from heaven. I think it's those little messages, those subtle hints that they're still with us.
Yeah.
So I think that's beautiful.
That's what I say every time. That's you. And I feel like she's always saying, "I'm here, Mama. Here I am."
That's beautiful. So you mentioned a little bit about your time at Summit Quest. You've been here for 6 years or more, and you have been an amazing friend and board member. And I think that it says so much about you and who you are that during the storm of your life that you continually choose to step out of your boat or vessel of safety and go and help those that are around you. And I think that's your personality. I think you kind of talked about that, like you were a magnet. So many people connect with you and your story, and you're a safe place. And so I commend you on that. And I also want to say, the question would be, do you feel like your time at Summit Quest has helped you in your healing process?
Oh, absolutely. It's regardless. I've said it's funny how I've kind of been deep inside of my feelings my whole life, and even as a young girl, I just kept thinking, we live in such a divisive world where people have different opinions and different religions or different political stances. And for me, I just want to try to get beyond that and just meet and go to where that person is and learn who they are. And regardless of what my religion is, I was put here to be kind. I was put here to be good, to share goodness. And now, don't get me wrong. I can be tipped in the other direction pretty quickly, but that's what I love about. To me, Summit Quest is just total goodness. It's kindness, which you can tell by a couple of things I've said. That word matters to me, and so that's what I'm here. That's what I was put here to do. And I think from an early age, I've had several losses in my life, and I've learned quite a few lessons. And the things that I learned with taking care of a terminally ill husband back when I was in my 30s helped me to take care of Erin when she was sick, and hopefully has taught me that people go through a lot of stuff, and whether it's illness, whether it's financial difficulties, as I'm a banker and I see that some, I'm just put here to help people feel better and give, so whatever that is, however I can do it, and it's from A to Z. There's not a certain way you have to do it. I just feel like we're put here to do something, something good.
And be kind.
Okay.
The last question, the closing question would be, could you share a word for the other moms out there who may listen or watch this, who are facing their own journey with having maybe a child with a cancer diagnosis?
So I think I'd have to go back to that lesson my husband gave me, is just just know, especially if you're the mom of a child with cancer, or maybe even a spouse, I guess it could be any family member, just know that sometimes that person has to let it out. They hurt, they have real pain, they have real anger, they have real fear. And my job as a mother, and I hope that maybe I can pass this along, is just to be there, to sometimes be the punching bag, let them get it out, because at the end of the day, you're always going to love them. That you want them to know at the end of the day, no matter what, I'm here for you. I'm gonna be here no matter what.
Man, a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom, I think, in the words that you shared, that were your words and that people have poured into you, that you shared with us. I just want to thank you again for being willing to come and do the 7 questions interview. And Erin was an amazing individual, but also a very lucky daughter to have you as her
Thank
mom.
you.
So thank you for all that you do for Summit Quest and all that you do for those that you come in contact with.
Thank you.
And I guess we'll all do our best to remember to be kind.
Be kind.
Thank you.